Hi, Billy. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, Ethan. All good, yeah. Not too bad. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you. It's great to have you on. A big fan of Catfish and The Wry Smiles and his solo work. So it's a big honour to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I just want to go back to the start, actually. What was your childhood like, and when did you first take an interest in music?
I think it started pretty young, to be honest. My dad was a big, yeah, he always had his vinyl player going. So yeah, that's the first thing I sort of remember. We grew up in Lancashire in a place called Accrington. I was born. Um, And then yeah, so from a young age, I just always remember having, video, you probably won't remember. How old are you? 23? You won't
23, yeah.
you won't probably remember video. Did you have videos or was it DVDs then when you were growing up?
Mainly DVDs, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, yeah, just think oh, I'm just about old enough to have, yeah, we were having videos in the early 90s, VHS, and we'd put like, I don't know, all sorts of tapes in of live concerts, Dire Straits, the Beatles, Elvis, the Shadows, and stuff like that. Even Cliff Richard got in there, and and yeah, and I just remember just having like a microphone and just trying to emulate what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? And copy them, sort of thing. And just basically just learning. I don't know. Those songs that you listen to as a kid, you kind of the lyrics just stick with you, don't they? They never leave, no matter how long it's been since you've last heard that song. As soon as you hear it again, it's like you just I don't know. Everything seems to stick a lot better when you're a kid, you know. It's just like ingrained in you. So all those sort of early songs, and I was brought up on mainly sort of like 60s, 70s music, really. So they're the ones that stick with me the most. And then my sort of era when I was growing up through the 90s, I didn't start really listening to that music more until I was like a teenager, so like in the early noughties. So that was how it started really. And then yeah, like I said, I just remember my dad playing loads of vinyls. He was a huge Elvis fan, so I've just become a massive fan myself. Um, Fortunate enough to go to Graceland actually when we were younger as well and see his house and things like that. So that was just a big inspiration doing things like that and seeing, what's possible. I mean, he had thousands of gold records on the wall and I've luckily got one behind me. It's the only one I've got, but yeah, it's just that was like an inspiration to want to do that. And just from a young age of being 8 or 7, I think it was 8 or 9 when we went to America. Um, and and then I couldn't play guitar at that point, but as soon as I came home, we started having guitar lessons, and that's when it kind of took off then from about sort of 10 to the age of 10 onwards. And that's when we moved then to North Wales. So we had a big change where we moved here, and I'm still here now. But my mum and dad they bought a bed and breakfast on the seafront, so they had a hotel on the seafront, and yeah, because they were busy all day every day with that, we just had to sort of make our own fun. So we'd go on the beach and all that stuff, but that became boring after a bit. It's not as it's great when you go, you're a kid and it's summertime, you go to the beach and what have you with your parents, but when you live there the novelty wears off a little bit after a while. But no, I still love being here. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful place to live. But um, that's when I then picked up the guitar and taught myself really. Neither of my parents could play any instruments. So they knew a couple of chords. So it was just they taught me a few chords, and I just took it from there really. Again, just had like Elvis books, Beatles books, Dire Straits books and just learned all them songs, just the basic chords really to each song and just sang along with them. And I seemed to pick it up quite naturally. So from there, I was just yeah, just in deep with it really, and it went from there. So it was yeah, just never really left. I mean, when I was a teenager, I started playing a bit more football and enjoying sports and stuff like that. So for a few years, it kind of took the back burner. But as soon as the band kicked off when we were 16, 17, it just, yeah, it ignited that fire again. So yeah, it's pretty much it, really.
So you mentioned there when you were 16, 17, the band started. Was before that, was there like a lot of kids getting into music in Wales at the time, in North Wales, or was it not really a thing there?
Not getting into what, sorry, into bands and
Like,
stuff.
yeah, like into like guitar music.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't really. I mean, like the Arctic Monkeys wave, you know, and all that sort of early indie, early 2004, 2005, that indie sort of scene was quite big at the time. That was just before, so I was around 14, 15 at that point. Again, like I said, I was probably more into football and things like at that age. Um, but that was obviously when, you know, they were like in getting top 10 singles. You know, the first two singles the Arctic Monkeys brought out, I think, went to number one or something like that. So they you know, they were all doing charts, you know, top 10 singles. So it was really popular, the indie scene back then. Whereas now, you know, it's still popular, but they don't get anywhere near the top 10 in the charts, any singles that indie bands bring out. So it was a pretty big thing, and everyone was on it. So we were just riding that kind of wave just a couple of years after, when we first started the band, and I think that just brought an influx of loads of artists, even though we were in the middle of nowhere and the music scene wasn't the best here in North Wales, in terms of like venues and things like that. There was still a lot of bands trying to make it, you know, just school bands basically. And there was a few live venues that we could play locally. One of them was called Speaker's Corner, which we always used to. You'd have like, I think it was a Wednesday night or something like that, and you'd have a set of like five bands that go on, and they'd all be from sort of like the same sort of area of schools, and you know, you'd be sort of almost, you weren't competing, but it was like you know, quietly competing against them, because you were trying to, you know, everyone was trying to at that point write their own songs rather than the play. You'd mainly be playing covers, but you're trying to be, you know, you're trying to be introducing new material and stuff to your schoolmates and show them that you've written a new song, you know, like an original song. So that's where we, you know, started doing that. And the at the top of town, if I didn't know where we lived, that was where we had a little studio, and it was basically like a, I don't know, it was like a massive bunker thing. So it was really well built, and you couldn't hear any sound out of it. So it was like four doors to get in there, and we just lock ourselves in and start writing these new songs out. And quite quickly from the covers scene, you know, doing a few covers, you know, for the first few gigs, we quickly decided we wanted to get into writing original stuff. And I think that was where it, you know, where we honed our, you know, our practice straight away. It was like, you know, we need, if we want to get out of this scene, we need to start writing our own stuff quickly. Do you know what I mean? So it all happened. I started writing most of the songs first, and then Van, well, then he was called Ryan. Now he likes to be known as Van. That was when we, you know, we'd start writing parts together. He might maybe bring in a song, I'd bring in a song, and we'd sort of bounce off each other, with different ideas of things like that. So that helped, I think, the band as well. The fact there was two of us at that stage bringing in songs, so we had loads of material coming into the studio. Then eventually he just kind of took over that lead role a little bit more. I was more comfortable doing the lead guitar part. He was a bit more charismatic and things like that, and with the crowd and that when we did live gigs. So he naturally filled into that lead singer role a bit better than I did. So he went down the route of, you know, being that sort of more the sort of sole songwriter, but I was still helping, you know, with parts and things like that with each song that he'd bring into the studio. Um, and we just fell into them roles then, really, where I was more sort of playing the lead guitar parts, backing vocals and things like that. And it just seemed to fit into place. And all the first songs that we wrote, they all went down really well whenever we'd go down to Manchester or Liverpool or things like that. There'd be loads of, you know, people going, "Oh, you're playing that, you're putting that song in the set, and you're putting this song in the set." But we were trying to sort of find our sound at that point. So we kept on throwing songs out of the set and bringing new ones in. And they'd be like, "Oh, why are you bringing a new one in? You know, I've just learnt all the words to this song or whatever." So we were constantly trying to evolve. Do you know what I mean? I think that's key to making it grow quickly as a band, is to not get too, hooked on the songs that you've written early doors, and you kind of you move on from them, because a lot of the time you're going to start writing better and better songs the more you write. And it's the same with every job you do. You get better with the more experience you do it. So we didn't get too precious about the early songs. We just threw them out and wrote better ones. So I think that definitely helped. It was just like I said, not being precious about them and just moving on, and just trying to progress each time with different songs. It frustrated a lot of the people that came and watched, but I think in the end it paid off. You know what I mean? Because obviously the first album that I was a part of, it's gone down, pretty well.
It is a
So,
very good album, isn't it?
well, I would say that, yeah. But no,
So the songs on Balcony,
yeah.
um, how did they come about? Were there any early songs that got onto the album, or did you write specifically for the album?
No, that most of them songs were already written, so they were. Yeah, I think that's what makes that album special, is the fact that, um, like I said, in the early days, we threw songs out pretty quickly, but then when it came to a point where we knew what our sound was, then the songs stayed in the set longer, and we you then you can't do that forever, where you just completely making a new setup every time you do a gig, a new gig. You can't have a new set every time, because you need to keep some consistency. Once you find that sound, once you know what your sound is, and what we thought Catfish and the Bottlemen sound was, that was when we stuck with that set, which then became the Balcony. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a few other songs as well that didn't make the album, or a few, in the pipeline around about that time. But on the whole, those 11 songs were what we then toured for a good year and a half, or so, to make sure that we then grew the foundations of a fan base, until, we then played a gig in London, and the guy Kev from Communion Records saw us, and took us on, and that's when the stepping stones happened into getting the major record label then. So yeah.
You mentioned like you play covers early on, play live, then
Yeah.
play covers live, and
Mm.
then you start writing your own songs. But when you were playing the covers live, did that help you like learn the craft of playing live?
Yeah, it did, and I think every band has to go through that, where you're playing the cover scene. But I think some bands will get too stuck in it, because you get, if you're playing to a load of punters in a pub, all they want to hear is songs that they know, basically. So if you're playing covers, then, people are going to be lapping it up, and, cheering and what have you after every song. So it can give you a bit of a false sense of security as a band, where you're like, oh, they're loving this, we should play more covers. But if you kind of then go out your comfort zone, and like, right, we're gonna, whether the crowd like it or not, we're gonna play our songs. I think that's when you really start to, hone your own sound, and go your own way. So yeah, it is important to do those covers, and that does help you with your craft, but not being too comfortable in doing it, because the crowd are enjoying it. I think deep down, most audiences, when you start playing proper venues anyway, they appreciate the original stuff more. So it's like trying to find that balance, where, when do we move into that area of, right, it's all going to be our own stuff now. There's going to be no more covers to hide, you know, any crap songs, or, whatever. So it's just, yeah, it's finding that balance, and then finding the right time to do it and go for it. But I think sooner better than later, really, because like I said, you can get stuck down a bit of a rabbit hole, where you don't want to come out, because you're too comfortable doing them. Um, but yeah, like I said, we came out of that pretty quickly, really.
Speaking of the balcony, it's 10 years next month since it came out. Does it feel like it's been a decade already?
Yeah, no, it's crazy that it's 10 years. Like, I can't believe it. In some things, when I think about memories, and things that happened around that time, yeah, it doesn't seem like 10 years, but then a lot has happened in that 10 years, you know what I mean? So it does, in a way. Um, but yeah, and everything that happened with COVID as well, that kind of I mean, that was 4 years ago in itself, and that seems like only yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's like, so it's like pre-COVID and post-COVID, and that 4 years after it has gone quick as well. So that's, before you know it, then it's 10 years. So it's mad. But yeah, a lot has changed in the music industry, I think, since then as well. So yeah, with social media was becoming big at that point when we made it with that album, but now it's almost like the be all and end all with everything now. Social media is crazy, especially the way bands have to kind of get themselves out there, and I don't envy it really. For bands coming through now, it's in some ways it's great because you've got all that chance to make yourself visual to people, but at the same time, it's really saturated with so many bands trying to do it, and so many artists and singers and everyone just trying to get their face and name on social media. It's like, look at me, and everyone's doing it, so it's difficult. But then at the same time, if you do make it, you can go viral within a few months, and you've got millions of people before you know it listening to you. So it can work in big ways for you as well. Um, But yeah, I mean, I still think there's something to be said for just getting out there and gigging live and gigging to as many venues as you can. There's still something to be said about that. If you've got the work ethic, you can still make it that way and get in the right places. Like I said, I never thought, when people say, "Oh, someone saw us at a gig," and it all kind of took off from there. And I didn't think those kind of things happened. But we did in London. We did it kind of did. It still doesn't happen overnight. Don't get me wrong. He didn't. He came to the gig. He saw us. He loved what he heard. But it didn't just the next day. We weren't just millionaires or having our album all over the radio and stuff like that. It didn't. It took a good year and a half after that moment for things to start kicking off. Um, but yeah, things like that still can happen. There's still a lot of people in and around, London, Manchester, wherever, big cities watching bands and taking people on. But it's just that work ethic, I think, that'll never change. It's just the way you go around doing things.
Well, you mentioned a big way Catfish got the name out there. Sorry,
Mm.
was playing live.
Mm.
What were those early days like then playing live when you weren't very well known?
I think the same for every band, that are out there. You're just trying to be as loud as you can. I don't mean like music, just you're just trying to get yourself out there. You know what I mean? We'd be just putting gigs on locally and stuff all the time. Even though the venues weren't brilliant here and they weren't really set up for a live gig, we had all the equipment. We saved up. We did what we used to do was like we call it like the pub tour. So for a month or two, we'd just book a load of pubs, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, getting loads of money behind us, put it in the bank, save it, and then use that for going on tour. Then like proper venues, so around the UK then. So we do that every few months. We do the pub tour, bring in a bit of money that would then pay for our fuel when we went away to like Scotland or London or Manchester, Liverpool, wherever. So we do that and book what we then call a proper tour, where with proper venues where they'd all be set up, ready to go with a proper PA rig and stuff. So yeah, we when we just used to do the pubs, we'd have our own PA, set all that up, and we'd still play our own songs at that point. You know what I mean? Like around 2011, 12, them kind of years. We'd play our own songs. We had about 30 original songs, and we just play them. We do a couple of covers in between, but we thought, no, we're just going to play our own stuff. Do you know what I mean? It all sat on seats like Westlife used to do, and just do it a bit more stripped back as the band. But it seemed to go down really well, and we'd pick up some good money from it. So that paid for the tour then. So I don't see so many bands doing things like that anymore, or I don't seem to notice it anyway. Um, whether people do or not, I try and if any bands come to me for any advice, I try and say go and do that because that's I think it's if you don't want to get 9 to 5 job, then there's your answer, because not many people get paid 200, 300 quid for doing 2 hours work. Do you know what I mean? So rather than working a whole week to get that money, or a good few days, go out and do a few gigs on the weekend, and then you can save that and pay for the tour. Doing a proper tour. So that's what we used to do, and then we pay for recording with it as well, and other things like that, and PRs and stuff. So yeah, so that's how we used to work. I mean, but like I said, like with the question you asked about live gigs, there was no one really wants to know any bands, apart from you'll get the real sort of music lovers that'll come out to these gigs, like maybe 10, 15, 20 people that are really, you can tell they really want to know and find and discover new music. You'll get those people, but until you start getting on bigger sort of radio stations and start getting a name for yourself out there, with the label helping push, promotion, PR, and that's when other people jump on board. You know what I mean? When something becomes kind of popular in a way. So it's a bit of a shame, yeah, but in a way, because there's this, it's only, like I said, that minority group that they're out actively looking for those bands and artists that they've not found yet, you know. But there's not as many people of as many of those people as the masses, which then jump on what they then, because someone else is in school is or at work has said, have you heard this band? They're on Radio 1. Then they go and listen to it and buy a ticket, and then they end up buying a ticket for 100 quid when they wouldn't pay for a ticket for a fiver down the local club to watch their local live act. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit fickle like that, but it is what it is. It's the way it is. And yeah, luckily, we, like I said, we did get to a stage then where we had a lot of people buying the records and coming to the gigs. So yeah, it was very grateful for that.
You mentioned you had the smart plan of playing at the weekend at small pubs, then going on a bigger tour around the UK.
Mm.
Um, was there like a mastermind behind the band who come up with ideas like that, or was it just all of you would like have ideas and
I think we all chipped in, but yeah, the main driving force was Van in the band. You know what I mean? He had a lot of ambition and drive to go and um, just come up with new ideas and new things and stuff like that. Like I said, social media wasn't as big then as it is now, but we were still trying to think of ways to make social media as interesting as possible as well. Keep up to date with that and posting every day and things like that, and doing, I don't know, all sorts of different things where when we were on tour, we had our roadie, Larry's called, we used to strap gaffer tape round his face and things like that and put him in the road and stuff. So we do all sorts of sort of weird stuff, mate. I don't know. And we had like masks and stuff that we wear ninja masks and things like that when we do live gigs. There's probably still some stuff on YouTube that you can see, where we'd put these ninja masks on and we'd show up at a venue with the generator, and we'd start fire the generator up and start playing a live gig outside venues and stuff. So we did that quite a lot, which and the one I always tell is when we set up outside Kasabian gig once, with the generator, and it all started pissing it down, and it was rain and all the equipment got ruined, but we played 2 or 3 songs, and we've still got this, they've still got fans from that day now that love the music. So just doing crazy stuff like that, and then putting that on social media and that. So it's yeah, we had a bit of a started to get a bit of a cult following, I suppose, before the label came on board. And then I think that's why they sort of were into us as well, not just because of the music, but they saw what work we were putting in behind the scenes to try and make it work for ourselves. So yeah, but I mean, Van, like I said, Van was, he was quite unusual with his ideas. So it was, he'd come up with some. We'd all come up with things, but he was like like I said, the driving force at that stage, with it all.
so what was it like getting signed to a big record deal and a big record label?
Yeah, I mean, you think when you think it's going to happen when you're kids, you're like, oh, I don't think we're going to be ready for this. But I think just because it's taken us that long, we've been about 6 or 7 years doing, like I said, doing the pub tour, then going doing tours ourselves and things like that. So we building blocks, and we signed to a smaller label first, got a little bit of Radio One success. So we were doing the stages and we did the ladder right. You know what I mean? We were going through each steps on the ladder. And by the time it came to signing that contract with a major record label, it just felt right. You know what I mean? It didn't feel we didn't feel out of place at that point. You know, it just felt like the most natural next step. So it was amazing to do it, and it was a little bit, like overwhelming when it all happened. But we were like, we're ready for it. You know what I mean? We've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. We just need to keep doing what we're doing, and just let the crowds get bigger and bigger, hopefully, and the festival slots get better and better, and that's what kept happening even after I left. You know what I mean? It kept growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. So that was, yeah. I said it was just a natural progression. Really, it was amazing. It was a great feeling, obviously signing the contract, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, we deserve it. We've worked hard enough for it, and we've done our apprenticeship, as you'd want to call it, like doing the pubs and doing all the toilet circuit as they call it as well. Yeah. So we were like, right, well, let's grab it and take it. Yeah. So we were ready. We were ready.
So are you glad you'd done all that then and been on the circuit and crafted your way to it instead of it being handed to you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. It feels more real at that point because, like I said, we'd honed our craft and we were like, yeah, I keep saying it, but we were ready to make the next step. Whereas a lot of bands and artists, or X Factor and things like that, they get thrown into the spotlight. They've never probably done a tour in their lives, and I feel sorry for him in a way because yeah, they might have all the talent in the world, they've got loads of talent, but the pressure you get put under straight away if you haven't gone through the ladders and the right steps to get to that point, it can be too overwhelming for these artists and they just fall straight back down as quickly as they went up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think it is important to do that. Some can take it, some can take the pressure and can work it. But if you're just a natural performer and natural artist, but a lot of the time, most of the time, if you don't go through those phases, it can like I said, it can fall quite quickly as well. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely proud of the way we did it. And I'd say that that's the way everyone should do it. But patience is the main thing in this game. You know what I mean? It's because it could have been another 10 years before we made it. You know what I mean? If you look at people, Jerry Cinnamon, even Oasis, Noel Gallagher was 27 when their first album came out with Oasis. And Jerry Cinnamon was like Cinnamon was in his 30s or something when that he brought out his first like proper album, started to make it. So not everyone makes it happen when they're in their early 20s or like late teenagers. Do you know what I mean? So it's just about that patience and just keep the grind going and keep working forward. But it is difficult. It's more difficult, obviously, as you get older because you're seeing your mates getting married or having kids and stuff like that, good jobs, good money and stuff. Where there's what we're doing at that level, there's no money in it. You know what I mean? Really, you're just fighting to survive and you're fighting to make a name for yourself. So that does get harder as you get older. But yeah, if you've still got it in you, then it can take 10, 15 years, but you can still make it at any age, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. What was it like recording the balcony then?
Oh, that was brilliant. I mean, I enjoy the recording process more now, I will say, as I got older. Um, but that was when I started enjoying it as well, because in the early days, I'd be just like, I was so impatient with recording. I just wanted to get it done when we were doing all the sort of pre-balcony stuff. I just wanted to get it done, get it out, and just be gigging constantly. I just wanted to be on the road all the time. But when we did the balcony, it was like, right, the label have put a bit of money down. We've got time to write the songs and craft them properly. So we had a proper producer. The producer, Jim Abyss, was the guy that did the first Arctic Monkeys album. So it was like he's got good credentials and things like that. And he comes in and he's like, right, you two got the same guitar amp. um, why have you got the same guitar amp? We're like, well, we've that's the way we've always done it. We've always played. We just bought the same amp like 5 years ago. We've still got it now because we can't afford anything else. And he's like, well, if you got the same guitar amp, you're gonna have the same sound, aren't you? I was like, well, I've got a different guitar than him. Does that not work? So it was just, but we were just going for that because we were inspired by like Oasis and things like that, writing songs. So we just like we just want that wall of sound, that big. So it doesn't matter if my amp's the same as his. We're just cranking it up, and we're just going to try and blast people's heads off with the noise of it. But he was like, well, yeah, that's fine if you're doing it live, but now we're recording a proper album. You're gonna have to, we're gonna have to use different amps and things like that. So he was bringing out different amps and all different guitars and what have you that he's got and he's used and things like that. Like I said, we recorded in the same place that the Arctics did their first album, so we were like, like little kids in a candy shop, like, this is where they did one of the best-selling albums of all time in the UK. And it was exciting for us, yeah. So at that point, doing the album it was brilliant. We had like, I think we had about a month or so to do it. Um, and yeah, it was we just again learning more things there. Like I said, different sounds from different amps and things. Looking back at it now, I would do things differently because as much as like Jim, the producer, brought in different amps to it went a little bit over the top at some points, and I would have reeled it back in and brought it a bit more like how our live sound is now. You know what I mean? But you live and learn, and I've learned as I've gone into more recording sessions to kind of listen to the producer and listen to what they've got to say, but at the same time you've got to try and keep that sameish vibe that you do have live because that's what makes you the band that you are. You know what I mean? That's why the fans loved it in the first place. So I would personally, when I listen back to that record now, I don't love like the pacifier riff,
Really?
the opening riff. I'm not keen on that. I did that on a 12-string guitar, like electric guitar.
Yeah.
That's unusual in itself. You don't really see that many 12-string electric guitars. You see acoustic ones, but there's not that many electric. It was just in the studio hanging up, and he was like, "Oh, why don't we try this?" So it was a bit of that on the first album. There was a lot of experimenting, different instruments and amps and things and sounds and pedals and that. So I wouldn't have gone too far into that, doing all that sort of stuff. I mean, when people listen to it now, they probably think it's not experimental. But for us at the time, it was. Do you know what I mean? Because we were just used to our one amp, and one guitar, and that was it. That was all we used. Um, so I'm not keen on like the pacifier intro riff and things like that. It's for me. I would do it differently. I wouldn't do it on a 12-string guitar. Let's put it that way.
What
But
is your favorite song on the album then?
sorry?
What's your favorite song on the album?
Favorite one. Well, Tyrants has always got me. Yeah, I love Tyrants. Sidewinder as well. I mean, we did that was I think that was one of the only that one and Tyrants they were the only two that we didn't release. I think from that album, like properly. So Sidewinder then got cast aside a little bit when they then started doing the second and third album. When they played live, I don't think they played Sidewinder as much then at the live gigs. But that for me, Sidewinder was one of my favourites at the time. Um, Fallout as well. But yeah, and Pacifier, but like I said, just don't not keen on the recording of Pacifier. Um, but those four I would say are my favourites. I think out of those, probably Tyrants and Sidewinder. But yeah, what about you? What would
Uh,
you say?
Tyrants got me into Catfish and the Bottlemen. That was the first song of yours I
Was
heard.
it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, my
interesting.
favourite probably Pacifier or
Yeah,
Tyrants. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Tyrants is one of them. And I mean, I don't think they end on it live now, do they? I think like live gigs and stuff. People saying they don't finish on that song anymore. I think they finish on Cocoon.
Yeah.
Um, but which is a shame really because it was a great. We just wrote that song in different parts, so that's why it's so bit weird. We just wrote different parts completely and just put them up, mashed it all together. Um, and it just seemed to live. It just seemed to work great to end the set, because there's just that big bit at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And always just went down really well with even people that didn't know our songs. It just seemed to go down really well. So yeah, so for me that one, because I just remember just going rocking out and just going for it at the end of the set with that song, and it just felt great. Like I said before, with just turning our amps up to like 11, it was just we just having blasting. So yeah, for me, I'd say that probably.
I don't think there's really a skippable song on it. I think all songs are great, but did you
Mm,
know it was going to be? Obviously, it was only your debut album, but did you think it
yeah.
was going to be a big hit?
No, not really. No, I mean, we'd signed to Island Records, so we knew it was going to get a good push. It was going to go out to quite a lot of people, and it was going to everything. I think when you were looking back at the Facebook likes at the time, they were going up like thousands by the day. So it was just going to that point where it was just going mad. Because we had loads of Radio One play with Kathleen and there's them records that got released from the album. So that was before the album even came out. It was going up and up and up. So we were like, well, maybe it'll do top 40, or something like that. And then when it did top 10, I couldn't believe it. Just to get in the top 10 was just unreal. So um, no, I didn't think it would do that well. I mean, I thought it'd do all right, but then when you look at how it's sustained the level of, I think it's had 150 weeks in the top 100. So there's not many albums that have been in the top 100 for 150 weeks. So it's crazy really when you look at those numbers. And then I think it's just recently gone past double platinum as well. So which means over 600,000 in the UK. So yeah, I never would have thought it would have had that longevity. An album can do well for maybe a year or two, but for it to just it's still selling well now. Like some of the Arctic records and Oasis records, it's still maybe not that level like of how much it's selling, but it's still selling consistently, year in year out. So in 10 years, like 10 years now, and it's still bringing in the cash.
It is crazy though, like how it's just, yeah, like you say, consistently there, isn't it? And bands nowadays, well, that time when this came out, what was it, 2013, was it?
14.
14, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So not a lot of albums do that well at that time, did they? Because obviously streaming and stuff, it kind of,
yeah.
albums have gone a bit, what would you say? What's the right word? A bit. They don't get listened to as much anymore, an album, does it?
No, no. Well, it doesn't get. Yeah, it might get streamed. It might get streamed as much, but it doesn't get bought as much. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we don't. It doesn't. Like the full thing doesn't get bought as much now. The album they might have more buy tracks off it or whatever, or stream tracks or listen to them on YouTube or whatever or Spotify. But yeah, so like I said, it's still selling well and it's still streaming well. So you know it's yeah it's tough. It's tougher for artists now. Like I thought it was tough for us then because you were 10 years before that it was all CDs, physical
Yeah,
sale.
that's what I mean.
You're
Yeah.
selling them for like 12 quid a pop. You do the math. It's a lot of money. For the band, the artist, they're bringing in a lot of money if you're doing what Oasis would have sold back in the day or whoever, was selling those big records. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's still sold a fair amount. I mean, not many indie artists anyway are doing better than gold records these days, which is 100,000. So yeah, it's well surpassed that, which is just yeah, amazing.
Do you get like a platinum disc or double platinum disc or like that?
Yeah, I've got a platinum one, but I haven't got a double one yet. I don't think. yeah, I think it might be past the point of asking for a disc off them now. It's just get like the platinum one, the gold one came straight away as soon as it went gold, and the platinum one, I think I had to ask him for that, but then it eventually came, and then uh, double platinum. Yeah, that's only just recently gone double platinum, so I don't expect to see one of them in the post, even though I should have it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah, it might. I don't even know who I'd contact now to get involved with them. I think they've changed management a few times and what have you, so it's a big rabbit hole going down to try and find out who you'd even contact to try and get an answer for that. But so if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then it's one of them things in it. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, I haven't had the double one yet. I'll be waiting a long time for that.
So we mentioned you recorded the album, but between recording it and it coming out, you left the band.
Hmm.
You said personal reasons. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean it's one of them. I've never gone into it properly because there isn't anything really to go into. It's just one of the things that happens sometimes with bands, and I think more the answers kind of have come a bit more recently with two of the other members leaving, and I think Bondi put a big statement down on his Instagram about things that had happened. So for him anyway, things that had happened. So I think reading between the lines, I think people can see in some ways what you know might have been differences of opinions and things like that. And uh, I think Bondi worded it as intolerable behaviour. So I'll leave that. I'll leave it at that. You know what I mean? So and them two, the Bob and Bondi have gone since. So yeah, I don't know. Um, maybe mine was a similar thing. Maybe it wasn't. No, but yeah, it's just one of them. I don't know what I can and can't say with contracts and that. But it's just these things happen all the time in bands. You know, where
Yeah.
people don't get along and for just for the best purpose, it's just to go out and do your own thing really and get on with life. Because when you're in a band, it's almost like having three wives, or if you're a girl band, three husbands, you know. So it's it's a lot of commitment. You're seeing a lot of each other day in, day out, you know, 24/7. So it isn't easy. Um, I'd like to think I'm quite easy to get on with, but maybe some people don't think that. But it's we've all got our traits where some people like and some people don't like, you know, with personality differences and what have you. So it's one of them things. But yeah, it was a long time ago now for me anyway. It's a bit still a bit more fresh for the other two that have left more recently. But for me, it's happened a long time ago, and I just sort of move on from it, and you know, it is what it is. That's all I sort of see it as, and I just get on with what I'm doing now and look forward really. But I still look back fondly with everything I do, and I still loved talking about it, you know, because it was a great thing that happened, and it's one of them things that sometimes can never be recreated, no matter how hard you try and do something. Sometimes it can't be recreated. It's just the magic of the time and the moment when it happened, that's why I still love talking about it because it's yeah, those years were brilliant as a band.
Like you say, you left with great memories. If you'd have stayed a bit
Mm.
longer, maybe there'd have been bad memories. You know what I mean? So maybe you left at the right time.
Possibly, yeah, yeah. You never know. Yeah, could have got even worse or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then you might have, you know, yeah, I might not have even wanted to talk about these times, you
Yeah,
know, to
exactly.
anyone. I mean, so yeah, it happened when it happened, and it happened at the right time. So for me, anyway. So and then yeah, I've done a lot of I've released a lot of music since, you know, maybe to more of a sort of well, definitely to more of a cult following. It's not gone to them levels, of course. But it's still I've met a load of people then since, brilliant people, brilliant musicians, great fans that have enjoyed all the music I've done after as well. So I can't grumble at any of that really. Do you know what I mean? And I noticed that you had as well when I was looking through you when you asked me to come on here that you'd done an interview with Pete Best as well. So that was I was looking at some of the clips on that you'd done with him, and you know he seemed very. I just like the way he was very humble about it all, and and explained it in a way probably I can't explain it as well. But yeah, it happens. Like I said before, it happens so many bands. You know what I mean? Because you just, you're not always going to get along, are you? Forever and ever and ever. Some bands do. Your Coldplays, U2s, Rolling Stones, all them sort of bands. Amazing that they can do that. I'd love to have been in a band that could have done that till we were in our 70s and 80s. But it doesn't. Life doesn't always work that way, does it?
No,
So,
exactly.
but
Like
yeah,
Pete Best, he's content with it now, and
yeah.
you know what I mean. They could be selling out whatever they're doing or selling more albums and stuff, but if you're
Mm.
not enjoying it and it's not a happy place, there's no point being there, is there?
No, no, exactly. I mean, it's even for someone like Pete Best, that is. I mean, they're like the most popular band that have ever lived. So it's
Yeah, yeah,
like to even you can't even compare my story to that. You know what I mean? It's just insane what he's had to sort of deal with. Um, and for him to still be as like humble and down to earth and grounded as he is just a testament to him and his character really. So it's those kind of people that you kind of look to as well.
yeah, definitely. He's a
Um,
great guy as well. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, you've left Catfish now. So what happened between the year of leaving Catfish and then Rice Miles?
So yeah, so I had a good year out, I'd say, where I just kind of struggled to, I did struggle at that point. I struggled to pick up the guitar and play any sort of music at all. So I just went and did it. And because we'd spent 6 or 7 years touring with the band, and that was the whole life for that long, I went and had a year where I did a few things that I wanted to do myself as well. You know what I mean? Um, still wasn't financially stable by any means at that point. You know what I mean? The balcony hadn't started recouping costs of the album that the label had paid for, so that there was no royalties or anything coming through at that point, really. So I was still financially stuck, but at the same time, I just about do what I wanted. You know what I mean? I was doing things where I didn't have to ask the band, "Can I do this? Can I do that?" Not that I wanted to anyway, because we were in the band and we were doing what we loved and touring the world. So that was amazing doing that. But at least I could sort of reconnect with friends and things like that and family a bit more, because at that point we were touring so heavily. I wasn't seeing any family or friends that much. So it was nice to, have a few Saturdays out and with the lads. I hadn't even been on a lads holiday till I was like 25, 26. So, everyone was doing it as teenagers going to, Malia or wherever it was at Ibiza. And I hadn't even had that opportunity to do that because the band was so intense. So to go out and, like I said, have a holiday with my mates, go out with my mates properly and things like that. I enjoyed that for a good year. Once I got all that sort of out of my system, I was like, right, I'm ready to write songs again. So I got back down, wrote some songs, and I felt like they were really coming out. They were coming out well because of everything that happened with Catfish. I had a lot to write about, so there was a lot of inspiration there to write things. So it really, it was really easy at that point writing songs. And the time there was a bit of a sort of Americana vibe going on in the UK. So I was going down that road. It was a little bit sort of rock, indie rock, Americana sort of vibe, a bit more chilled than the Catfish scene. Um, and I was enjoying that. And we had a great time at that point. I went to the studio, which Simon Jones, the bass player from the Verve, owned, and he still owns in Chester because it's only about 40 minutes away from where I live. And he helped me put a band together. So he was like, "Yeah, well, I know loads of musicians that come into my studio. I'll ask them if they want to be in a band and stuff like that, and we'll get some auditions going." So we auditioned a few guys and got a drummer, got a guitarist, and a bass player in, and called it Billy Bibby and the Wry Smiles. And I named it that probably because I didn't know the guys in the band, so I thought if we name it a band name, just solely a band name, then it might you never know. We might not get on in a few months' time, and they might want to go and do something else. So if you keep changing band members and it's just the band name, it can sometimes wear a bit thin. Do you know what I mean? So thought we'll go with my name with a band name behind it, Billy Bibby and the Wry Smiles, and have it more sort of like if band members want to come in and drop out, then whatever, and we have to rotate band members, then at least it can still work that way with that name. But I really got on with the three lads that I initially got in, the Wry Smiles, Rob, Matt, and Mikey. They were brilliant, brilliant musicians, great lads, still good friends with them now. And we just, like with the Catfish thing, we took that model into, you know, going out touring, doing as many gigs as we could. We were doing like almost 100 gigs a year again. I bought myself, managed to get enough money to get a van together, so we could all travel in the same vehicle and go down to the gigs together. Um, so I'd pick them up from, because they lived like 40 minutes an hour away. I'd have to go and pick them up, then drive, or so drop them off and what have you. So it was a lot harder than doing it with Catfish because we all lived in the same area, but it was well worth it. You know what I mean? It was the graph that I was used to doing with Catfish. Doing just driving constantly from gig to gig. So it was amazing. It was an amazing time, and yeah, I look back at those memories really fondly now. And even because that was like 8, 9 years ago now, so that was a long time ago. And we had a good 2 or 3 years doing the circuit, trying to get bigger and bigger like Catfish did, go through the same phases, and then a few of the lads in the band wanted to go and just do other things with uni and stuff like that. So I can't stand in anyone's way to do if they want to go and do things like that. So from then that moment, we did have a few replacements. A few other guitarists came in and drummers came in, and they were brilliant as well. Really got on with them guys, but it never had that same vibe as the original lineup with the Wry Smiles. So eventually that finished as well. And then I went into a band called Haig in 2019, and those two lads that are in that band now that we're still in together, they um, they played with us when they were in their previous band with Catfish, so it kind of linked round, and they're from Blackburn in Lancashire, where I'm originally from in Accrington, only 5 minutes away. So it sort of came full circle a little bit when that opportunity came around. And yeah, they again two really really good lads, great friends with. So all these things, wouldn't have happened obviously if I'd have still been in Catfish. Sure, great things would have happened with them if I'd have stayed with them. But like I said, I've done so many things after it as well, where we've had some great experiences on the road with other musicians, meeting other people, fans, creating new music. So you can't, yeah, I can't complain really. I've had a good 10 years previous to that album coming out as well. So we've had a good time on the road. But yeah, it's come down a bit quieter now, with the band and stuff. I've started going to doing sort of more work with PR and things like that, music PR company that I'm working for, and another bits and bobs of work and that. Still doing gigs, acoustic gigs as well. But I'm just, yeah, at this stage, I think it's not that my drive hasn't gone. It's just the fact that, like I said, you get to a point where I'm 34 now, and it's like it's getting to a point where you're not too old. I wouldn't say too old. It's just
It's like a good
circumstances
20 years of your
circumstances.
life kind of thing.
Yeah, and circumstances change a little bit as well. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, I'm more for, I think, like there's a lot of hungry young bands out there that want it, and it's like it's great to try and help them, especially when I do this PR job that I do now. I speak to bands quite regularly, all the time, and a lot of them are Catfish fans. So it's brilliant to speak to these people and try and help them to the next level. Whether it be PR or just giving them free advice. You know what I mean? I just giving anyone advice. I love chatting to other artists and band members that are trying to make it from the ground up and try and help them. So I get a buzz from that now as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of those things. I keep myself busy, but like I said, not gigging as much as what I used to do there a few years ago. But we're still around touring and playing when we can. We're doing Victoria's Festival next week, which in Portsmouth, which there's some big artists headlining that, and we're playing with Hearts as well. Bob's new band from Bob from Catfish, his new band from Sweden. Hearts are playing just before us at Victoria's Festival, so we've come full circle there as well because I didn't speak to Bob for 10 years until he left the band, and then it was great to rekindle that friendship with him. So and we've also been working on stuff together, me and Bob. So we've been recording stuff in his studio in Sweden where he lives. So we've got some new music coming, and we've done about seven tracks so far. So we're just going to get them properly produced. We've got their studio booked in to the same studio that we did all the early Catfish demos. So we're going right back to the start with our old producer that we've not worked with for a long time, and we're gonna do these songs together and release them. Like maybe not. We've got no plans really to do a live gig or anything like that, but we're gonna put them out there and let fans hopefully enjoy them. These tracks, where we've just put all of our ideas down and just seen what's come out. And it luckily, like I said, we hadn't played together for about, well, nearly 10 years. So coming into the studio, we weren't sure what to expect and whether it was gonna, whether the songs were gonna sound good or not. And we didn't really have any set songs. It was just like, let's try and write something off the cuff and write it together. And it just seemed to fall straight into place, like we'd never sort of left each other. So it's like, right, can we really do something with these songs and bring them out properly? So we've got plans to do that in the next few months. And yeah, like I said, hopefully people enjoy the tracks, and we've taken some inspiration from new stuff that we like, and we've also taken some inspirations from some early Catfish demos that maybe didn't get played and stuff like that. So we've just kind of played around with the idea of some of those sounds and things like that and seeing what we can get out of that. And yeah, we'll see how it sounds when we get back in the old studio again. But hopefully, once we release them, that's another. I just like having a catalogue of things that we just keep coming out with. You know what I mean? And just keep releasing new music, even if we're not gigging or touring as much anymore. Like I said to you before, I enjoy the recording part of it more now than I do the live part, where it used to always be the other way around. So, but I enjoy that part of creating music now.
Well, I want to talk about your solo debut album, Piece It Together, that came out in 2022. What was
Yeah.
the writing and recording like of that album?
Well, that was with actually with this guy that with me and Bob are going back in with. So it was the first producer that we did with the Catfish stuff. But we actually recorded that album a few years before, a year before COVID, I think. So and then I didn't release it till 2022 because I was holding it there because unfortunately the producer that we did it with, Russ, who we're going to go back in with Bob, he had a brain hemorrhage, which was terrible at the time, obviously horrendous. Um, and very nearly died from it. And so all those recordings on Piece It Back Together were unfinished, because all them tracks were done previously. And then at the time when he was in recovery, and now he's obviously back working again now. He's still not fully recovered from it, but he's still back doing what he loves, recording, producing. But at the time when it was still quite fresh after it happened, I thought, I want to get these songs out there, even if they're not quite finished. I want to get them out there and put it as a bit of a sort of thing for him, really. You know what I mean? Even though he'd probably kill me for it, because he'd want the he'd want to finish the versions as a producer. He'd want to get the songs finished and make them sound as good as they possibly can. But at the same time, I thought they sounded quite nice, just raw. Do you know what I mean? They're quite raw,
Yeah,
and there wasn't many instruments on them. It was just me and acoustic guitar and a little bit of keys and a little bit of little bits of lead parts and things, but not much else really. So I quite like the rawness of it, that we just basically those tracks were done in a few days that complete that whole album. They've not been mastered properly or anything like that. So I kind of tweaked them a little bit at home because I've got my own program at home on Cubase, and did a few little tweaks myself. But most of it is what we just did in those few days, and just put it out there. So it was really for just for that reason, to be honest. I just wanted to get them out there, and just for him really. Like I said, he's back working again now, which is brilliant news after what he went through. Um, and he's only just, his wife at the time was pregnant, so it was just horrible that she had to go through all that as well. And then and now he's obviously got his son's born, and he's, I think, 2, and it's just great that he's on the mend now, and on that road to recovery, and working again. But yeah, it was more for that reason really, and just wanted to get the songs out there. They had been sat for a while as well. Um, but yeah, I just like the rawness of it. I like sometimes like doing stuff, and even if it's not quite finished, I'm like, well, this is sometimes better if you overproduce something. Sometimes it can sound too contrived and too like trying too hard with it. So I just thought it was nice really that they were quite stripped back, and something I'd not done before. I usually do full band stuff all the time, so just nice to put out a few acoustic ones really.
yeah, it felt more like intimate and like you're in the room kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, because they were like just recorded as if they were. I think it was just the acoustic guitar and then a few vocal takes out over the top as well. So
Yeah.
they pretty much are. They pretty much are live, really. Yeah,
So you mentioned you're not playing as much music nowadays. You've got the festival next week, and
yeah,
then you've mentioned the album with Bob. But you mentioned you're doing music PR. How did that come about, and what can you tell us about
yeah. Well, a guy called Tyler Gibb. I met him a few years back, and he's actually from Portsmouth, so he'll be at the festival that we're playing this week on Friday. So sorry, it's this week, this Friday, when we're playing in Portsmouth. So he's from there. I'll probably see him down there this week, and I've been friends with him for years, and he's worked for this company, Decent PR, came about, and basically, yeah, I was just saying I want to look for something different, in the week where I can be still involved in music and try and help people where we can. And I was seeing some great results that the company was getting, and there's a lot of skepticism around PR companies doing music and things like that, and where they're not actually doing that much sometimes for the artist and the band, and they're paying a fortune for it. Um, so I've always been a little bit wary because as an artist myself, you don't want to go into something where you don't believe that it's the right thing, you're doing the right thing for the artist that you're trying to sell these campaigns for, PR campaigns, but the results they were getting were brilliant. And it was all the team that they had working around them, in the playlisting department and the radio plugin and digital press and things like that were just really hands-on and brilliant. So I thought, yeah, I can get involved with this, and at least it's still involving music, and it's still helping musicians. And whenever I get on a call with an artist now to discuss the PR work, I'll always say to them on the call, I'll just say, if there's any advice you want, I can give you. I said, we'll talk about that as well. I'm not here to just sell you stuff, sell you campaigns. I'll happily chat and talk about other things as well, just like I said, the pub gigs thing or whatever. If there's anything I feel like I can express to tell, or about radio or social media, whatever it may be, I'll try and help to give my sort of experience that I've had over the last 10, 15 years back to you. And if you want to take it, then you can run with it. If not, you do your own thing. But at least, I'm trying my best to help these young artists. And I'm just getting in touch with artists that I believe in as well. I'm not just getting in touch with artists that that I don't like the music or anything like that. I'm genuinely trying to speak to bands and artists that I really think they can go far, and they've got some good songs out there. They've put some good songs out on Spotify.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're doing though, because obviously, like say, you've been there and done it, so to get advice from you, it's really helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, without sounding big-headed, it's just the fact that it's just experience. It's just if you're a young artist or in any field of work, if you're just starting out in anything, you listen to your people, the people that have been there and done it, don't you? You just listen to them like I did when I was younger, growing up as an artist. We had a band called The Time who are now in their 40s, but at the time they were sort of my age and we were like the teenagers. And we were like, how do you get gigs outside of Wales and Chester? Because they were from Chester. We were like, how'd you go? Because they'd played in London and Liverpool and Manchester and all over the UK. We were like, how do you get gigs and how do you do this? And we were just constantly asking questions all the time. So I think that's, if you're inquisitive and you want to find and know more about the industry that you're in, then you're gonna progress quicker, aren't you? So it's just simple, just the way it works.
Yeah, definitely. So, just to finish off though, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Where can people find your music and the PR work and stuff?
Yeah, so well, the PR work is decent music PR, so that's the name of the company. So yeah, if there's any bands or artists that are watching this that want to have a conversation about it, hit me up on Instagram, Billy Bibs, and we can have a chat on there. And yeah, nothing with the music really. I just other than like I said, I'm doing stuff with Bob now, so that's keep your eyes peeled on my social media for that. We're not even going to create a band page or anything like that. It's going to be done through both our personal accounts on Instagram and Facebook and that. So we're not even going to bother with that. We just want to get the music, just make it all about the music and just get the music out there when it's ready. So keep an eye on things like that. And I said, if anyone's, well, when will this be going out? It'll probably
Tonight, hopefully.
oh, tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if people are around Victoria's Festival, come to the introducing stage and the casemate stage and come and watch us on Friday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
And well,
definitely.
catch Hearts before as well at 4:30. So yeah, um, yeah, if anyone's around at that time.
It sounds great, but thank you for your time. It's been brilliant to talk to you. I think that was a very like open and honest interview about your life and your time in music. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having us on. Cheers, mate.
No worries, thank you, and thank you again. I'm a big fan of music, so it means a lot.
Oh, nice one. Cheers, mate. Thank
Nice
you.
one, thank you.